I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Rebecca Matulonis. Rebecca is the operations manager for Casandra Properties. She's responsible for the inception and implementation of a host of systems and initiatives there. I think talking about all of that will be much more interesting if you sort of tell us to hear it coming from your mouth, Rebecca. So thanks for being on the show. And I'd love it if you could go ahead and share your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started actually my career prior to real estate was human resources. And I was looking just for a change. I loved human resources, but just was looking for a change at one point in time in my life and kind of stumbled into real estate. I actually took a job doing accounting, and turns out as much as I love numbers, I'm very social. So it was not the greatest fit for me. And they were like, hey, maybe you should look into doing leasing, because the company did commercial leasing. And so I kind of fell into that role. And after that, I met James and went over to Casandra Properties. And when I got there, he kind of allowed me to utilize my skill set of human resources and operations management and that type of thing. So long story short, that's kind of how I fell into this role. And now I kind of run the day-to-day stuff at the company.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I think the more people I talk to on the podcast, the more I'm finding, and even in my own life, that just your life, whatever you had leading up into getting into real estate, seems to contribute to kind of how that, how some of those skills, some of those experiences contribute to how you handle the real estate side of things. So maybe talk about a little bit, sort of what you are doing, some of those things that you've implemented to help the business run better and stuff like that. What and how maybe how that relates to your background in human resources.
Okay, yeah. So when I came on, they had some systems in place, and they weren't bad systems. They just needed improvement. So the first thing I did was I kind of dug into everything. I went through all of their like policy and procedure manuals, and just every procedure that they had in place, and revamped the entire thing. So I'm very organized. So I reorganized everything and made it simpler, digitized a lot of stuff because there was a lot of things that they were still doing by hand. Also, like they even did that in like the accounting realm. They had commission sheets that they were still doing filled out by hand. So I computerized all of those, put them into, spreadsheets and QuickBooks and all of that. So that's kind of where I got to use some of my background in human resources. And then I put into place procedures for the hiring process of agents, because they really didn't have a system for that. So I put that in place. And that was fun. That was great for me because I still love human resources. I love everything about it, especially the talking with agents and really just working with people, employees, agents, whoever. I like to kind of be that intermediate person between them. So I got to do that, which was really nice.
Oh, that's cool. I think that's actually a thing that a lot of us, and myself for sure, struggle with in terms of, sort of when to hire, how to hire, who's the, how do you know that it's the right person and things like that. So probably you can speak a lot to that. What do you use as your process? What do you recommend for people in terms of, whether it's the first employee or just in general? Is it better to have asking too many questions at once? But okay. I guess maybe talk a little bit about what you use as that process, because I think that'll actually be helpful for a lot of people in real estate as they grow their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing I recommend that everybody do is come up with some sort of, there's all kinds of different personality tests. There's like leadership type tests. Find one that you like. We use these called Pro Ds, and they are fantastic. And they utilize and figure out what your skill sets are, where your weaknesses are. You can tell a lot about a person based upon these tests. And it really just gives you a good idea. So, you know, a lot of the issues I think that companies have, that they not necessarily have the wrong employee. It's just that the employees are miscast. And that happens. You see that so frequently. If you get the person in the right job and utilizing their skill set, you're golden. Like, that's all you need. So I always encourage people to really pay attention to make sure that they put people in the right positions. And I know with real estate, it's a little bit different because you're hiring agents, but even to know like, okay, this agent is going to be really good with residential, maybe not as much with commercial. It's really two, I mean, there's, most people know who are involved in real estate, it's two different animals, right?
Yeah,
so it really
worlds.
requires two different personalities. Some people are able to do both, and that's awesome. And some people really prefer one or the other just based upon the differences of the two. So that's really my main thing, is to kind of figure that out, get to know the person via one of these personality tests. And then it really gives you just a great way to figure out where they would be the best fit.
Okay. And so beyond the personality test, is there, I guess, how do you do the process of hiring? You post for a job, then they're going to submit an application, I would assume, and then you send them the personality test, or how does that process work? Because I'd imagine it's not just the personality test. Obviously, you need to interview them and things like that.
Yeah. So same thing. You post. Then I usually once I get applications in, I scan them, and after you've done HR for a number of years, it's funny because I talk with other people who are in HR, you know, like there are certain things that you see on applications and you just push them right to the side. So I narrow those down, and then I always do like a first interview. And if the first interview goes well, that's when I'll engage and get a personality type test done.
Okay.
And after that's done, then I'll call them back for the second interview. And then, you know, it's either an in or out. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What gets you pushed to the side?
Typos is the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, typos.
Spell check,
I mean, typos
people.
in general make me crazy. Yes, but yeah, it seems like such a simple thing to kind of not have typos on your resume and be
and
just attention to detail.
Yeah, proper grammar. You see that so often. You know, it's funny. I'm always baffled at how people don't know how to use like there, you know, there they are, right? Properly. And it's fine. You don't have to, but have somebody double check your resume and make sure that your resume looks proper and your grammar is good and you have no typos, because almost anyone, guaranteed, if they've been doing HR for years, will take it and just, sorry, but no.
Yeah, it's sort of an easy it's an easy bar to step over, and if you don't, then it's probably, don't have high hopes that they're going to be able to handle the rest of the job. So I imagine that makes it when you have a pile of applications, it's an easy place to kind of cross things off. So once you get, when you get someone in there, what if they don't fit? You said that most of the time they're just miscast. So if they're not, sort of the good employee, so how do you recognize those things? How do you fix them?
Well, okay, so if we're talking an employee, if somebody, there's so many different little things that you'll notice if someone is miscast. And often if you pay enough attention, you'll be able to see, especially if you're an intuitive person, which I am, I can usually sense if somebody's it's just not right. It's not the right fit. And then what I always think that you should do is work with someone first before you say, oh, I'm done. This isn't going to work. I always try to give people a chance to prove that they can do the job if they're in the right position. So I will then maybe try to figure out what their strength is and fit them, move them into what would work better. Now, that's not always the case. You can't always do that. It depends on the size of your business and what kind of different positions you have. But if possible, if you can move someone around and get them to work mostly in their gifts and their skill sets, that's what you need. I can't really impress upon people enough. When someone is working in their gift, you have an amazing employee. It is
Yeah.
such a difference to see someone working in their gift versus not working in their gift. It's almost like two totally different people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I feel like I've seen that too in jobs that I've had, just people that seem to be in one position, they're almost like a problem employee, and then in
Mhm.
another position they're a rock star, and it's kind of like just finding that spot for them. I think that that's a really good point. So you're not really doing HR specifically now, right? That and so what other, or maybe you are doing that as well, what other things are you doing within the company?
Well, I wear many hats. So I still kind of oversee the HR stuff. I do, like I said, I implement any new systems, like we're getting a new CRM right now. So I'm overseeing all of that implementation. I also do business coaching for the company. I just started that actually. So coaching some of the agents, helping them. I do, as far as, so I started doing commercial leasing. That's how I kind of got into this role as well. So like I said, lots of hats, but I manage we work on a couple of shopping centers. So I manage the leasing for those. What don't I do?
I know, I was
That's
like,
the real
that's
question.
sounds very busy. I don't, I feel like, I mean, I feel like that's the ideal person sometimes to have on your team. I know you're talking about finding the right role for people, but sometimes
Mhm.
I think that the the best employees are the people that can do a few different things, right, and kind of fit in where needed. And I think it sounds like that's what kind of exactly what you're doing, is just whatever needs to be done, you're doing it. And maybe that's, as an operations manager, that's what it is. It's just kind of taking everything and making sure that these individual portions are running smoothly. Um, when you're doing, so as a commercial leasing broker, what what does that look like? How do you approach, because there's going to be a lot of people maybe listening to this that have uh, some commercial properties that are, industrial or retail or something like that. What does that look like to you when you're trying to fill those spots in the shopping centers? How does that process work?
um, well, that process in a shopping center is a little bit different. We always have site visits. Those are really important, especially when seeing a new center. Tenants like to know who else is going to be in the shopping center with them. Co-tenancy is what they call it. Is a big deal. James and I worked on Empire Outlets on Staten Island, and that was kind of like my first big leasing project. And it was very eye-opening because you go to a mall or a shopping center and you don't think about who's next to who, or that they would even care who's next to who. But now that I do, you see like, oh, children's tend to always be together, and shoes tend to be more together, and different brands you pick up now that I have the experience. But before, I would have never noticed that. So yeah, we do site visits with them, and then, negotiate leases. Finding them the right space is always a little bit tricky, but yeah. So as far as what I do on a daily basis now with that kind of stuff, I'm not necessarily doing the leasing anymore, but I'm making sure that the leases have gone out. I do all of like the center updates for the owners. I work on the CAM budgets, those types of things. It just, it's what I enjoy. So that's kind of what I've started doing more of now.
Will you explain what CAM budget or what CAMs are? I know, but I think people will
That's
maybe
true.
not
You
understand that.
forget that people don't know.
Right.
So it's the common area maintenance. So it's all of those places that, the like the lobbies or the restrooms in the centers, those open air spaces. Somebody has to pay for those, like the
Right.
lighting, the heating, the air conditioning, all of that. So what every tenant has to do is they pay a percentage or an amount per square foot. Now, at the end of the year, you have to reconcile that amount, right? Make sure that what they've paid is the right amount so that everybody is paying exactly what they're supposed to per their lease. So somebody has to go in and reconcile all of those. So it's a lot of spreadsheet work, which I actually thoroughly enjoy. So
Good. So yeah, so it's basically you're sort of saying, okay, this is what the budget for those common areas are going to be for the year, and at the end of the year have to kind of make sure that, if people have overpaid or underpaid,
exactly,
get
that
that sort of
everything matches up.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And so will you talk a little bit, I assume that in the shopping center that they've got triple net leases, or is
Yes.
this, yeah, will you talk a little bit about, kind of explain how that works for people?
Sure. So a triple net lease means that they are paying a base rent and then they pay taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. So it's three things. Sometimes you'll see a double net, um, but it's most commonly a triple net lease. So sometimes you have a gross lease where it encompasses all of that. And so they're paying, let's say, instead of paying $30 per foot plus triple net, and your triple net charges are $10 just to make life easy,
Yeah.
they're going to pay $40 gross. And then at the end of the year, there's no CAM reconciliation. They don't have to worry about any of that. They don't have to worry about the tax increase or insurance increase, anything like that. It's all covered in this gross rent. So a lot of people like gross rents as tenants. As landlords, we like triple net leases.
Yeah, because
There's escalations in there that we can charge for and all of that.
right, yeah, with the triple net, then any of those maybe unforeseen increases, those are taken by the tenants, whereas with the gross, you're hoping that nothing,
Exactly.
yeah, there are no surprises and you don't have to come up with any sort of extra money to cover that. So
Exactly.
yeah, definitely makes sense that it would be the triple net is more landlord friendly.
Yes, it is.
Oh no, that's very interesting. I think a lot of people not in the real estate space maybe don't realize that there are a lot of different assets within commercial real estate, a lot of different asset classes, with retail or industrial or multifamily or self-storage, and how very different they all can be. And so I think it's really kind of interesting. We haven't really talked to anyone about, sort of that sort of triple net lease and the real commercial space on the podcast. So thank you kind of for talking about that. Well, let me dive into some of the questions that I like to ask every guest.
Sure.
Because the name of the podcast is Know Your Why.
Mhm.
Rebecca, can you tell us what your why is? What's really your driving force behind your success and your growth in business and life, I
Sure.
guess?
Sure. Oh, let's see. My why. I am a go-getter. I always have been. But I would say that my why is people. I love people. I tried to spend a part of my life not focusing on that and trying to be like more focused on what I needed to get done. But it all comes down to what really sets your soul on fire, right? And for me, it's helping people, which is why I got into human resources, and encouraging other people. So I've kind of been able to do that in my role, along with the other things that I thoroughly enjoy, like organizing and implementing things. So I kind of have the best of both worlds.
Nice. So as you said before, you sort of found your position that you are able to use your passion, your passion to drive your skills. So that's really pretty cool. Tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, a skill or a hobby or something like that maybe not everybody knows about you.
Well, it's become more, I guess more people know now just because James made me sing on the podcast once, but I love to sing. I've sang my entire life. I'm not going to be a Grammy winner by any means, but I love it. So I was in a band. I think I started in a band when I was 5.
Wow.
And just kind of kept going. And I did spend quite a few years singing for weddings and funerals, which the funerals part always grabs people by surprise. They're like, what? Like, you can actually make good money getting hired to sing one song at a funeral. But yeah, so I did, I did that for several years.
That's amazing. I've never heard of singing at a
Isn't
wedding. Or
you never heard
sorry,
of
at a
singing?
funeral. I mean,
Oh,
at a
I was gonna
funeral.
say, what?
Yeah, I was like, no, wedding definitely yes, but wedding singer. I mean, there's a movie called Wedding Singer, right? Like the yeah, no, singing at a funeral though. That's I
I know it's not something that you would commonly think of, but when you go, usually there's some form of music in the background, or, when somebody does a slideshow, that's
yeah.
typically when they would request a song. So, I would sing. Sometimes country is like my least favorite genre of
Me too.
music. And that's always what I got requested to
Really,
sing. Always. I always sang some form of a country song at a funeral.
that's so
Kind of
funny.
strange, but true.
That's so funny. That's amazing. I love music, so that's really cool to hear. If people want to reach out to you and get to know you, is there something we can put in the show notes as far as a way to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me on Instagram, Becca Matulonis, or you can email me, Rebecca at CassandraProperties.com.
Awesome. And then final question, what
Mhm.
piece of advice would you give to people that, maybe if you think about yourself a few years back to get where you've gone now, what advice would you give to people in terms of succeeding?
Mm, that's a good question. Um,
Singing at funerals,
Singing at funerals, yeah, no, definitely not. Although, hey,
maybe.
if it's what you love, then
That's
go
right.
for it.
Right.
Never give up. If you have a dream and you see it, but it seems impossible, you just keep going. Just do not give up. Whatever you do, just keep going. You will find a way. If you are determined to get where you want to be, you're going to get there. You
Yeah.
just got to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. I really sort of resonate with that. That's one I've often had to at times have to tell myself, don't if you don't give up, you're gonna make it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
a really good piece of advice.
I
Well,
feel like
listen,
people often just, it's so easy to give up. And sometimes in our culture, it's people want to give up when you come up against something difficult. But learning that skill too of how to persevere is such an awesome life skill because you will need it many times.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, a lot of times it is easier to just kind of quit or give up on what you're really, because the hard stuff is just that, it's hard. So trying
Exactly.
to form that mindset around not stopping when it gets hard and realizing that on the other side it's all going to be worth it. So that's very cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on the show. It
Thank you
was
for
really
having
great to
me.
talk to you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, we'll get out of here and I'll let you get back to your what is probably a very, very busy day.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Take care, everyone.